So a very good morning to all distinguished speakers, professors, scientists, and students, and all the participants. I'm Dr. Devashish Ponda, a coordinator of this program. Heartily welcome you all in this series of AICT sponsored online short-term training program on recent trends in emerging devices and nanotechnology. This is the phase 2. And phase 1, we have already finished a couple of a week back in the first week of this month, organized by Department of Physics, National Institute of Science and Technology, Berampur. At the time when we are almost exhausted by COVID-19 and we are forced to work from home, and that is really very depressing for all of us. And to refresh our mind and boost our knowledge, AICT New Delhi put confidence on NIST, and NIST made this platform for e-learning and e-training, where 7 eminent scientists from the top-notch institutions and industries of the world will teach and share their valuable knowledges with us. I'm personally and NIST is very much thankful to them to make their valuable time from their busy schedule. A week back, we have already successfully completed phase 1 from there, and a lot of speakers, distinguished speakers, already delivered their valuable talks on basics of nanotechnology and devices. In this program, we will mostly focus on the several devices based on nanotechnology and their applications. More than 200 participants have been registered from abroad, IITs, NITs, faculties of different AICTE approved colleges all over India, and wanted to join for this phase 2. Among them, only 40 has been selected to join phase 2 as per AICTE norms. The phase 2 will be conducted in 6 days from today, Tuesday to Sunday, from 9:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Every day we have 3 sessions of 90 minutes each, from 9:30 a.m. to 11 a.m., 11:30 a.m. to 1 p.m., and last session will start at 3 p.m. This is the STTP will be conducted in 5 phases to cover almost all areas on emerging devices and technology, with almost no similarities among phases. In this page, we have speakers from University of Newcastle, UK, Institute of Microelectronics, Singapore, IIT Bombay. Professor Gupta is already with us right now. She will inaugurate our second page. IIT Delhi, SM Bose National Center for Basic Sciences, NIT Agartala, Institute of Physics, Bhubaneswar, and Berampur University, to cover different aspects of nanotechnology, flexible and wearable devices, emerging devices, solar cells, magnetism, sensors, and a lot of things. We will try our best to give the flavor of experiment virtually by video demonstration so that participants should not be bored. The tentative schedule of the program we already shared with all of you in our email. I welcome you all once again in this AICTE sponsored short-term training program. I think I should say a few words about our institute, NIST. The National Institute of Science and Technology, Berampur, was established in the year 1996 by a group of academicians and technocrats educated in the top institutions of India and abroad under SM Charitable Educational Trust, where Professor Sangram Mudali is the founder, secretary, administrative head, and director till date since inception. NIST is the first NRA educational venture in the state of Odisha, keeping true of its core value, mission, and vision. NIST has become the top-notch institute in the state and country since establishment, and now accredited by NAC and NBA also. NIST received several awards, which includes 69th rank in the NIRA, given by the MHRT, #1 college in the BPUT, etc. So many things are there. I do not be able to cover in this short time. Now I like to request our placement director, Professor Geetika Mudali, BTech from Osmania University and Masters from New Jersey Institute of Technology, USA, founder promoter of NIST, to give a inaugural speech. Geetika, madam, please.
Yes, good morning to everybody. It's my pleasure to be present for this phase 2 faculty development workshop sponsored by AICTE, and this program is going to be for 6 days, and the title of this program is Recent Trends in Emerging Devices and Nanotechnology, phase 2, which is organized by the Department of Physics of National Institute of Science and Technology, Berampur, Odisha. This program is coordinated by Professor Devashish Panda, and as Devashish Panda sir has also conducted the phase 1 of the AICT sponsored short-term training program. So I am really thankful to the inaugural speaker of today, that is Professor Gupta from IIT Bombay, for finding her time for this exciting talk on flexible and wearable electronics. I thank her for being present today in this workshop and giving a lecture, giving her talk. So even though I do not have much knowledge in this area, but I'll try to learn from her talk. I'm requesting her to make it a little bit easy so that people like us can understand the various technology as related to the nanotechnologies. A variety of areas starting from basic of nanotechnology, device fabrication, sensors, emerging devices, magnetism, organic devices, heterostructures, solar cell, everything is nicely planned for this space by the experts from UK, Singapore, IITs, NITs, etc. I like to give my wholehearted thanks to the resource persons for their time and finding their valuable time for us. This program usually we make it in our campus with practical exposure, but due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we are bound to make it online. I believe all the resource persons will make the session very exciting. I would like to thank all the organizers for this program. Our directors are Professor Sangram Mudali and Professor Debashish Panda sir, and all the faculty and staff who have supported this program, and to organize such a wonderful training program, such a wonderful course on nanotechnology and emerging devices. So I hope all of you will have a great learning experience and you will gain much from this program and add to your knowledge base, and we have more enthusiasm in this technology, and teach your students also with a lot of enthusiasm. So thank you very much. I welcome Professor Gupta to start her talk.
Just a minute, ma'am. Professor Mudali already find his time. Sir already joined. So before Madam's talk, Professor Gupta's talk, I'd like to request our director, sir, Professor Sangram Mudali, BTech from IIT Kanpur. Our inaugural speaker, Professor Gupta, is also a product of IIT Kanpur, and masters from University of Houston, Professor Mudali, to say a few words before starting the exciting talk by Professor Gupta. Sangram sir, please.
Yeah, thank you so much, Debashish. I'm sorry I joined a few minutes late. Warm welcome to Professor Deepti Gupta, and she belongs to what is probably the state of the art in terms of the current work which is going on in flexible electronics and wearable sensors. I used to see this building in IIT Kanpur on my frequent visits to IIT, and I used to wonder, that was probably 10 years back when it was established, or much more, when it was established at IIT Kanpur as a special grant from probably Samsung or somebody. And I used to wonder what these professors are doing. The topic was so far sound, flexible electronics and wearable sensors. So I'm very happy that Professor Gupta being associated with this flexible electronics and wearable sensors is there with us. And for your kind information, I'm a graduate of 80 to 85, the last 5-year batch of IIT Kanpur. I still remember my roll number, which is 80152, and you can check it up. And I'm also happen to be a distinguished alumni of IIT Kanpur, being awarded in 2017, along with other people from IIT Kanpur. So it's a great welcome back to you. And these days you are in IIT Bombay, I understand. And I'm sure that the experiences you will share with the participants will be of extremely high quality. And it's great that we are kick-offing this program with a fantastic professor and a person with eminent credentials such as you. So welcome you to NIST, and we look forward to your talk today. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Professor Sangram, Professor
Thank you,
Panda,
sir.
and Professor Geetika. Yeah, it's like, thank you very much for inviting me, and I really feel pleasure to talk amongst you all and share my knowledge with you, and hope everybody can get benefits from this talk. So I will try to speak in a very simple way, because I understand that many people have not gone through these kind of researches. But I hope that you will be able to get most of it, because I will not be getting into too much of a depth, but still I will try to showcase what is happening in these areas and what are the approaches that are being taken. And probably some of you, if you are interested, you can pick up some things from here and start and feel it, like, find it interesting to work on it. So thank you again. Yeah, thank you again, Professor Panda, for
Just a
inviting.
minute, ma'am. Before you
Really.
start, before starting your talk, I need to introduce yourself. That is our duty. So Dr. Gupta is working as a professor at Metallurgical Engineering and Material Science Department, IIT Bombay, India. She received her BTech from IIT Kanpur and continued her MTech and PhD from Material Science and Metallurgical Engineering in the same institute. Later, she worked as a BK21 postdoctoral fellow at KIST, Korea, as an EPSRC research associate at Empirical College, London, UK. She also spent 2 years with Department of Electrical Engineering, Seoul National University, Korea, BK as a BK assistant professor. She is also recipient of prestigious ACRB Power Fellowship. Currently, she is associated with Technology Innovation Hub on IoT, IoE, where she would be contributing towards health IoT, sensors, and data analysis. She is also associated with Center of Excellence in Nanoelectronics, IIT Bombay Monash Research Academy, with Wardwani Research Center for Bioengineering, National Center for Photovoltaic Research and Education, located at IIT Bombay and IIT Bombay, India. Our research activities are funded by competitive programs of Department of Science and Technology, Government of India, the Indo-US Science and Technology Forum, Scientific and Engineering Research Board, Wadhwani Foundation, Biotechnology Industry Research Associate Council, Tata Center for Technology and Design, etc. Our research interests are in the area of flexible and stretchable electronics, wearable sensors for application in healthcare and energy application. She has done a lot of work in these fields, and I am a keen follower of her work. Okay. With this short introduction, I am requesting Professor Gupta to give her inaugural talk. Gupta ma'am, please.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll start now.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So first, let me talk about, like, I will try to be very simple. So I'll talk about, like, first of all, what is flexible and stretchable electronics, right? So conventional electronic devices, as you see. So just Professor Panda, can you see my cursor moving?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, yeah. So conventional electronic devices, as you say, that these are basically like this, right? PCB board or like silicon-based die chips. So these generally have like lots of different electronic components, microprocessors, LEDs, resistors, capacitors, lot many different things. And the substrate, if you see over here, this is polyamide-based hard substrate. So overall, this design is generally rigid and hard, brittle, and bulky, right? So these kind of PCBs people definitely have seen. So what flexible electronics is trying to do is converting the same PCB into this kind of a format, right? Which is a flexible. So that means all of the devices, for example, over here, registers, capacitors, microprocessors, everything needs to be really thin and get into this kind of a form. For example, over here, this all PCB is converted in and taken into like a plastic sheet on which all the components are into a very thin form, right? Thin film form. So this, and therefore, because this is thin, it is actually can be bent, fold, or rolled. So that's how we call it as a flexible. So the conventional rigid form has converted into a flexible format in which you can bend, fold, or roll. Another way to do this is that, for example, all these chips, right, microprocessor chips, which is shown over here, these are based on silicon dies, right, silicon wafer dies. So people have also come up with this approach that this die, which is really because its thickness is higher, it's rigid. But then if you if you just do it rubbing on an emery paper and keep on reducing its thickness, while all its components, electronic components, are on the top, it can be converted into this thin film form because its thickness is reduced. And because its thickness is reduced, its all components are intact. It can be flexible. It can be like called flexible because it can now be bent or rolled. So this is the aspect that people are looking into when they are talking about flexible electronic devices, that they can be bent or fold without losing their electronic properties. And other ways to do this that people have tried to work on is using soft materials, for example, organic materials, conducting polymers, hydrogels, etc. And another approach, as I said, is that if you use the same silicon-based materials, try to get them thinner so that they become flexible. And if you see the mechanics of it, right, why the thickness plays an important role in it. And this goes by this simple understanding, this simple expression. It is like strain is related to thickness divided by bending radius. So that means like you reduce the thickness, right? And for the particular bending radius, it will be able to accommodate more strain, right? So because of this, if you see now this plot over here, the extreme side of it is a silicon wafer with a bulk wafer, which has a thickness of around 10 to the power minus 3 meter, that is roughly 1 millimeter, right? And on the extreme side of it is nanomembrane, which is around 10 nanometer thickness. So this silicon wafer, if you reduce its thickness, it becomes like this. It will start getting flexible. The same wafer which is brittle, now it will start becoming thin. And if you continue reducing its thickness down to nanometer regions, where you convert into a silicon nanomembrane, it has a very high bending curvature, right? So this plot basically talks about bending curvature versus thickness. So you have higher thickness, you have less bending curvature. You have lower thickness, you have more bending curvature. So basically thickness plays an important role in bending things and getting higher bending curvatures. So this was about flexible electronic devices. Another concept that is very much prominent in this area is called flexible hybrid electronic devices. And why hybrid? Because see, lots of things, as you know, all of the semiconductor devices, high performing semiconductor devices, they are based on silicon based dies, right? And this field is very much mature. For example, if you talk about Intel core chip, right? Intel processor, it is something like this microprocessor, which is very compact, and it's doing lots of computations, and therefore your computers are really very fast, right, because of this Intel chip. And this is again, although this microprocessor is rigid, hard, it is based on silicon based wafers, but then you cannot compete its performance, its computing performance, with other flexible devices. So therefore people thought that why not merge two aspects. One is computing aspect of the already existing and matured semiconductor industry, and put it on a flexible substrate, and have other components such as this tag, right, RFID antenna. This can be flexible and this can be rigid. So some of its component can be rigid, right, but they can be put up on this flexible substrate. So together, can people find a way to put even harder assemblies, brittle parts onto this flexible substrate and make an assembly such that in total it is flexible without actually compromising on the performance. So this is how people call it flexible hybrid electronic devices. So another version of it then come up as a stretchable electronic devices. So why it is only be flexible, which can be bent and rolled, but it can be stretched as well. For example, over here, this one, the same structure can you improvise it in such a way such that it also stretches. And now let me take you to this kind of a slide where we want to say that why we are talking about why we need flexibility and stretchability at all. Why, how does it add values to the already matured semiconductor electronic devices? And the reasons are listed over here. So first thing is, as I said, like since we are talking about curving, flexible, conforming, these are some applications which you can think of, which you cannot think of with the traditional semiconductor industry. For example, this silicon wafer panel, which is conforming on the car roof, right? So if it is a traditional silicon solar panel, so this is a silicon solar panel on car. But then if it is not in the like flexible form, you cannot cover it up in this way such that it's just like a cover of the car. So for these kind of applications, you need a flexibility or stretchability aspect. Again, for example, if you're talking about a solar tent, right? So this is a solar tent which you can use in remote places or whenever you need it. So then again, it cannot go with the traditional solar panels. It has to have something like this kind of a format, flexible format. Or suppose in some biomedical aspects over here. So over here, I hope you can see some kind of a silicon, some kind of a shining thing, gold kind of a thing. So this is not just a foil, right? This is a full electronic devices with lots of photo detectors, and it can take an X-ray of your mouth, because as you know, if you go for a dental check or some kind of issues with your mouth cavity, you go to a dentist, and dentists generally take X-rays, and these all machines are really bulky and not so much easy to use. But then if it is a kind of a flexible, stretchable format which just looks like aluminum foil, right? You just put it inside your mouth and it can actually take a picture of your image of your entire cavity, which doctors can then use for suggesting you the treatments. So these kind of things definitely cannot go with regular format. So here you need these kind of formats. And since they have become lightweight and thin, basically you can also think of mobile phones which can be bent or fold, right? So you do not worry about if they fall down, they will break, right? So something like this. Or for example, since they are lightweight, they can find many application in remote like space applications, or these kind of curved TVs you might have seen in the market. And then, for example, over here in military applications or remote applications, again, you have a power supply. Yes, this is a solar panel, which you can fold it and use it in remote places. So these are rugged, robust, and non-brittle. And the similar version of it, because it gets stuck, because it is foldable, it becomes stackable. You can roll it and it becomes portable like this. So therefore, for many applications, converting the traditional electronic devices to flexible or stretchable electronic devices will definitely add value. And there are many applications that people have thought of, for example, lighting applications, solar cells, displays, smart textiles, RFID tags, smart objects, medical sensors, even batteries also, right? So lots of different kind of researches are going on in this area. So I'll start giving you some like examples from my own research, right? So we and basically about translational research. And why I'm talking about translational research, because as you know that in academia, especially in India, we work a lot on doing research. We publish lots of papers, and if you see in publishing papers in worldwide, we are ranked number 3, right? But using this knowledge to converting into some useful products, we are lying in very low, somewhere around 50. Our rank is around 50 or 50 to 60, right? So we are very low in that category. So basically it means is that whatever we learn, we are not able to convert into something which other people can use. We are not trained in that way. So and I hope like with the talk that I am giving you, like somebody can try that whatever they are learning, can that be converted into something useful. So I'm trying to give you some examples from my own research, how we have done it. and probably it inspires someone. So and especially this translation research is about in medical area, like converting cuffless blood pressure monitoring sensors, right? And what is the importance of cuffless BP monitoring devices is that you know that when you measure, when you want to measure blood pressure, uh, can I take a minute? Excuse, my kids are shouting. Just 1 second.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Yeah, so cuffless, so you know that when you want to measure blood pressure, you put a cuff around it, right? And generally blood pressure in that way is taken by some medical practitioners, right? But then why there is a cuffless and need of a cuffless monitoring devices is because you want to monitor your blood pressure sometimes continuously, and it becomes very critical for patients who have some cardiovascular kind of issues. For them, like a continuous monitoring means that suppose you want to measure your blood pressure every 3 hours, right? Then it is really difficult to go to a doctor and he will measure your blood pressure every three hours. So either patient should go to the doctor or doctor should come to the patient, right? So this is definitely not a possible thing if you want to go in that way. And therefore people say that if we want, an importance of continuous monitoring is that uh, especially for critical patients, it can predict heart attack, for example, well before it happens. So these kind of cuffless monitoring devices is very much important. And we get into this when we applied for a grant. It was about Indo-US grant challenge on cuffless BP monitoring. And it was about developing proof of concept. So we get into this and like we were fortunate to get this very highly competitive grant. And how we had worked on this, so we had this organic thin film transistors, and I assume that people know about little bit about transistors. So transistors is basically a 3-terminal device. You have 3 electrodes, gate, source and drain, and a dielectric material and a semiconductor material. So transistors basically serves a purpose of signal amplification, right? And it actually works in the way that when you apply a voltage to the gate, a channel is created at the interface between gate and insulator, and when you apply a voltage between source and gate, it conduct electricity. So what we thought is that if we improvise the dielectric part of it, if you macro pattern it, then when we apply pressure, the signal would change. So then it can act as a pressure sensor. And we checked on this way, and it turns out that it was working. It was working as a pressure sensing device. And then in this respect, we have also worked on low voltage and high mobility organic thin film transistors. And I will quickly say over here that in our department, we were working on some kind of binders, anti-corrosive coating materials, and which we had tried it in the dielectric material. And we had very good results in transistors. I'll not try to go into that detail in this one. And we had tried with different materials. In previous one, if you have noticed, we had used an organic semiconductor material called pentacene, but we had also worked on different low temperature zinc oxide based materials also to create transistors. And from the previous transistor based cuffless BP monitoring devices, we thought to make it even more simpler. So we just thought to remove the transistor component of it and convert it into a simple capacitive device. And we realized that even this simple device can give us a good pulse waveform, right? So this device is then put on the wrist, and then you can see a very good pulse waveform from this simple device, where P1, P2, P3 actually represents the diastolic and systolic peak, like the one when you measure BP. It can be remodeled and can be converted into, when you talk blood pressure, people tell you about 120/70, right? So this is on high side pressure is like 120 millimeter Hg, lower side is around 70 millimeter Hg, right? So these peaks actually represents those pressures. And this is a simple proof of concept device which we had tested very rigorously, and we tried to convert it into a wearable device, something like Fitbit. And then we had also moved towards like nanomaterials based approach, rather than microfabrication techniques, nanomaterials based approaches for fabricating these devices. So we started with a very low cost material, piezoresistive material, right? So this is a polyurethane foam material which is very readily available. So initially we tried to make it use it as a capacitive device, like you put 2 electrodes on 2 sides of it, and basically it's a porous material, so it serves as a dielectric with air filled in it. So when you press it, it would air would remove, and its thickness would change and capacitance would change, and that's how it can work as a pressure sensor. But then this device was working at a very high voltage, so it would be like very much power intensive. So we thought to convert into a resistive device. So what we did, we created a coating, right, based on reduced graphene oxide and multi-walled nano tube, so that it covers the exoskeleton of this polyurethane foam, and it becomes a piezoresistive device. But then development of ink itself took us lots of time, because what we wanted was very good dispersion, wettability, and ultimately low cost, right? So we had also worked on ink part of it, and this is a quick picture showing how the devices are fabricated and tested, right? So you take a foam, dip it in this ink, dry it, put electrodes, and then you test it, apply electromechanical testings are done, you put your sample over here, apply pressure and measure its electrical characteristics. And these are different characteristics which are showing that when you apply pressure, these all components start coming together and the resistance decreases. And we try to test it very rigorously with respect to resistance change with strain, pressure strain, conductivity versus pressure, resistivity versus pressure. Lots of data we had collected. Also checks is like different cycles, how does it behave, and it's talking about its durability. And these are few morphological studies telling how the nanomaterial based ink is coated on the PU surface. And ultimately we could get again this simple device which can collect pulse waveform from any part of the body, for example, wrist or neck over here. And then we also tested it for again different kind of small scale motion monitoring. For example, if you put the device on the neck over here and start speaking some different words, it give you different patterns. For example, if you say stop, sponge, morning, good morning. So these are very preliminary results, but it can give you a different pattern. And large scale motion monitoring, like for example, if you bend the fingers at different angles, the pattern become change and you can figure out at how much your finger is bent. And these can find application in, for example, in robotics. And then these are few ways how we have come up with these composite coatings, different composite coatings, like basically exfoliations and testing it on different surfaces. And these are few functionalization processes of the ink. Okay, again, I'll not go into much detail because this is all synthesis of the ink material. And then as for testing, we had rigorously tested all the ink material for Raman spectroscopy, AFM images, electrical measurement, optical images, because all of these are required to understand your ink material and how does it coat on different surfaces. Now I'll talk about like another important area of like wearable dry electrophysiological electrodes, typically like ECG, EEG, EMG electrodes. Right. So right now in hospitals, you will see this kind of a setting. Suppose you want to take ECG, you know, lots of different electrodes would be attached to your body. They will go to a machine and then it will record your ECG electrocardiogram, right? But then this again requires medical practitioners, and you need to sit it in this way, and it cannot be like continuous monitoring, because continuous monitoring, as I mentioned previously, it's important many a times that you keep on collecting data for at regular intervals, and therefore this wearable aspects come into picture, and therefore this term wearable means that you can wear it for a long time. But then these are actually not just clothing. These are actually smart devices embedded with lots of sensors which can collect relevant data from your body. So again, the issue, so these are all wet electrodes based on AgAgCl. So they require adhesive and skin irritating gels. Then they are hard, rigid and brittle. They require again wiring, and again, they are not suitable for long-term usage. But then if they are dry electrode means that you do not require this gel. Then they are more comfortable, long lasting, and they can be continuously, they can be rapid to use. You do not require doctors over here. For example, over here, you require doctors to put it precisely where they need to be placed. So we had worked on this and we had come up with 2-3 different approaches. For example, polymer carbon nanomaterial based composites, metal nanoparticle embedded in polymer composites, carbon nanomaterial coated textiles, and we try to get some waveforms. And this is the data from our lab where we try to compare with the commercially available AgAgCl electrodes versus our nanomaterial electrodes. And we had tested it till continuously till 10 hours, right? From T is equal to 0 till T is equal to 10 hours. And we could see that if you just see the two patterns on the two sides, they very much resemble each other. So that confirms that these nanomaterial kind of approach for these electrodes is also a very promising approach. We had also tested it for not only ECG, we had also tested it for EEG, like EEG's electroencephalography, like getting signals from the mind. And we had tested it for like open eye, closed eye. So when you open your eyes, it will give you different signals. If you close your eyes, it will give you a different signal. So these signals are very hard to read over here, but at very micro level, one can see changes in the signal. You can see over here we had made this patch which is easy to stick on the forehead, and you can get the signals. And these can have potential applications in, for example, brain related diseases like in stroke, dyslexia, Alzheimer, Parkinson, these things. And these can also be used as EMG, like EMG is like electro musculography, right? So basically it will tell you about if there are some issues in the muscles, right? So lots of pains, orthopedic pains people feel these days. So based on EMG electrodes, they can be tested and can be treated as well. Now I'll quickly talk about how will you fabricate stretchable electronic systems. So stretchable electronic systems, there can be two approaches. One approach is that all the materials are stretchable, because when you make devices, systems, you would have many devices into it, like it may have diode, transistor, capacitor, right? So one approach is that all the materials are stretchable, right? So, but then it is very difficult because you also have to have a trade-off between performance and stretchability. You just don't want material to stretch. They should also have electronic properties associated with it. And you know that if you start stretching the regular materials, they will lose their electronic properties. So many times it is not easy. So therefore, a clever engineering approach is taken, in which what you do is that you take substrate which is stretchable, right? So you take polymer substrates. For example, this PDMS material over here, polydimethyl siloxane. This is a stretchable polymer, right? Or Ecoflex or some polyurethane. So these polymers are stretchable and they are used as a substrates, and on which you create, so this is a soft substrate. In between, you create some rigid part into it, right? And then on these rigid part, you can now put any kind of devices, whether they are sensors, transistors, or diodes. And if you stretch this all, the devices which are put on this rigid island, they will not get stretched, and therefore your electronic properties would not change with stretching, right? And this is a clever engineering approach that people have taken, and we had also tried to use it in some way. I'll just show it over here. But in this system, there is also another important part of it, which is called interconnects, right? Interconnects is basically connecting two devices together, right? This is also part of your circuit, ICs. So suppose these interconnects are not stretchable, these are connected. So you are stretching it, then these interconnects will break. So overall, your system would not perform well. So therefore, these interconnects also need to be stretchable. So I will talk about these two aspects now. So what we have done is we have tried to create a very highly stretchable substrate using PDMS material. And we had used a slightly different approach, where in your base, in PDMS, basically there are two components. One is base, one is curing agent. And in between, we had tried to put it another component, which is PDMS BPO, and a component called benzophenone, which is light sensitive material. So what we did was that if you add PDMS BPO to it, it basically inhibits the cross-linking ability between the base and cross-linking agent, right? And what benzophenone does it, that benzophenone reacts with the curing agent, and then it also affects its like curing ability, and therefore it inhibits the cross-linking, basically cross-linking ability again. And we had tried to use this approach, knowing this property of these materials. We had tried to come up with different weight percentages of PDMS BO such that it can have a very high stretchability with respect to stress and strain. We tried to test it with the different concentrations of PDMS BO and see how does its Young's modulus change. Then how does its curing time, because time is important. So in how much time and how does it affect different weight percent of PDMS BO, and how does it affect its Young's modulus? How does its UV exposure, because we have kept benzophenone, which is a light sensitive material. So it changes the properties of the system when you expose it to UV. So overall system, how does it change if you change the exposure time? So there are many parameters like concentration of PU, curing time, exposure time, temperature, so many different things. And we had tried to come up with certain recipes such that we are able to create this kind of a system. So first picture over here, if you see, it is basically a soft material. In between, there is a rigid portion. So there are some slight protrusion, if you can see over here. These are a rigid part of it. So this can be stretched up to 300%. And now in this 300% figure over, you can see this white portion clearly, which is rigid portion. So by doing this kind of a recipe, we are selectively able to create rigid portions in between these soft portions, which can stretch up to 300%. And we had calculated that if you stretch whole substrate 300%, then in rigid part only 3 or 4% mechanical strain comes in. And then we put LEDs onto it just to showcase that there is no effect in glowing of LED if you paste this on it. And we had also tried to convince it by putting gold film on this thing. You can see over here that at 0% strain, gold film is intact. At 300%, it is slightly breaking, right? So this is on the rigid part of it, and this breaking is on the softer part of it. You can see that at 300% strain rigid part, there is not much breaking between here to here. Yeah, and the same, and we also checked its resistivity, which shows that there is no change in the resistivity in the rigid part. And then what we did is we tried to come up with some recipes so that we can transfer the transistors that we fabricate onto this stretchable substrates. And these are few devices where we show that even at 300% strain, the device properties does not change. And these are few interconnect designs we had come up with. For example, this portion over here, right? It has some spiral kind of a design. So we call it as 1 turn, 2 turns, 3 turns, 4 turns, right? So basically, you don't interconnect this device with a straight line, but try to convert into a spring-like structure, such that when you stretch it, this interconnect do not break, right? So suppose this is just a straight line which is not stretchable, and if you start stretching it to 300%, this interconnect would break, right? So don't keep it like a straight line, but convert into a spring-like format, so that when you stretch it till 300%, it opens up and it allows these rigid islands, these like blue blocks over here, to be stretched up to 300%, right? Because if interconnects are not stretchable, system as a whole would not stretch. And then again, we had tried to, so these are all COMSOL simulations, where we had tried to show that what kind of a design we can take for interconnects. Again, like when you stretch it along x-axis, along diagonals, or along xy, in different directions, you try to stretch it and try to see how does this interconnect opens up, and does it affect the overall structure in stretching. So these are few results over here, which we try to see, like strain versus number of turns for different designs, normal serpentine, dense serpentine, and we try to stretch it in different directions to understand how does it affect the overall stretchability. And then we try to fabricate it, the same structures, right? So previous one were the simulations. These were the structures that we had created. So you can see that this is the original substrate. We stretched it till 300%, and then when you release it, it comes back to its original position. So these are all interconnects in between, and in between these are rigid portions. So with this, I want to thank you all, and I hope you are able to get some portions of it. So overall, if I say that the making of these kind of systems is very important for wearable devices and overall in flexible electronics. So with this, I would like to thank all my students, staffs who had worked really hard to get us all these results, all the funding agencies, and thank you very much. And if I'm open to questions now, so you can ask me questions.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Dipti ma'am, for your nice talk. Session is already open for the questions. You can unmute yourself and you can ask the question to the Dipti ma'am.
Very good. Good morning, one and all. Dr. Deepti ma'am, I think it's pleasure to talk to you. After a long time, we have met in PSG IAS, Institute of Advanced Studies, Coimbatore, when you were here. So, yeah, my question here, since we are also, you know very well that we are also working on flexible electronics and TFT-based devices. So my question from your presentation is that how we are ensuring the piezo, piezoresistive or piezoelectric behavior of your materials? Do you start with the materials which is already known in the well-known in the domain, like the best piezoresistive materials or like piezoelectric materials, or do you from the scratch, the material science, the device, the physics aspects of the materials, and then you go to the application part?
So I will try to answer it in a different way. So if you noticed over here, we have actually not taken the known piezoresistive material. We had tried to convert into a piezoresistive material, piezo material, if I say. So in transistors, if you see that we had created this this microfabricated structure, right? So it is like this is that when you apply pressure, because when you are creating micro structures on it, you are creating kind of a porous structure, if I say, or structure in which there is some gaps, right? And these are soft materials.
Right.
So when you press these materials, air from there gets removed, or you can also say it in a way that thickness is reduced, right? So that's how they respond to the applied pressure. Okay, so their signal changes. So device design is in such a way that it responds to the applied pressure or strain. Material itself is not piezo material. For example, piezo materials, piezo polymers are kind like PVDF kind of a materials. The structure of this is itself that if you apply pressure to this material, it will change, it will like, because charges are created into this one. These are not centrosymmetric materials, right? So these are inherent piezo materials, but ours is designed materials which can respond to applied pressure or strain.
Right. Thank you.
Ma'am, I have one question. Ma'am, whatever you have measured the application of the traceable devices, most of the things, whatever results you show there, these are most of mechanical properties. Is there any electrical or any other properties, application-oriented properties are there? Have you measured this?
No. Electrical properties we have always shown, because without electrical properties, it will not justify it.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
So you can see, because mechanical and electrical both goes hand in hand. So here, as you can see, for example,
Yeah.
right? So it talks about resistance versus strain, right? So even if you stretch it up to 300%, its resistance does not change. Okay, so everywhere, even over here in these devices, this data is at different strains. So you strain it up to 300% and you take its IDVG characteristics, like current voltage characteristics, and you see there is no change even if you apply 300% strain.
Yes.
Okay, so in these all, because we are talking about electronic devices, it definitely will not go without showing electrical
Yes.
properties.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.